exact same social distancing propaganda has been spewed in the public faces for a couple of weeks. And now, what is the inevitable result of this? Latest from the Globe and Mail. Federal, local governments consider fines, prison to enforce social distancing. The federal government will use tough enforcement measures, which include the threat of prison and massive fines if Canadians don't take self-isolation and self-distancing seriously, Federal Health Minister Patty Hajdu says. We will use every measure in our toolbox at the federal level to ensure compliance, she told a news conference on Sunday. For me, should we see a reluctance on behalf of the country to pull together, that would be a time when we would require additional measures. And as always, this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause. Yay! Flatten the curve! Social distancing! Woo! Get those quarantine evaders! This is how it's going to go, because you are being indoctrinated into the belief that this social distancing is somehow enforceable, let alone enforcement worthy. This is a process, and it is playing out right now, and it is surrounding these terms which are being injected into the public mind right now, full scale, full force. I often deal with subjects in Propaganda Watch where there's the degree of detachment and we can see the propaganda, and it's often once you take a step back and look at it, it's quite obvious. But in this case, I know a lot of people in this audience even will still think, oh, this is perfectly, yeah, of course. I mean, it's a pandemic situation, so of course people are going to be interested in this, and yeah, they should be enforcing this. But I want you to fully recognize the fact that you are being steeped into this. They are showing you exactly how you are supposed to act and react around these issues, so that when the enforcement happens, most of the enforcement will happen at the lowest level of the power pyramid. It will be people enforcing it on each other. It'll be the crabs pulling the other crabs back into the bucket because you were breaking the rules that the teacher told, the governor, God, whatever, told us from on high. This, of course, is just under the broader umbrella of what's happening right now, which is the new normal. You may have noticed that they are promoting a new normal right now, and this is one aspect of it. Quarantine, shaming, social distancing, flattening the curve is introducing us to the lexicon of the new normal, and then, of course, there are actions and reactions that are associated with that if you want to be a good citizen and not shamed, let alone fined or thrown in prison, then you better abide by these new rules. And this is something that's been picked up on, obviously, by other researchers. I'll throw a link in the show notes to a very good and thorough new video from Derek Brose of the Conscious Resistance about the new normal. I'll throw a link into a Off Guardian article that went up recently where they were talking about the new normal appearing 3 times in 3 separate op-eds in one single day in The Guardian. They had 3 separate op-eds all about the new normal. And I will, of course, refer people to this MIT Technology Review article that you may have seen by now. We're not going back to normal. Social distancing is here to stay for much more than a few weeks. It will upend our way of life, in some ways, forever. To stop coronavirus, we will need to radically change almost everything we do. How we work, exercise, socialize, shop, manage our health, educate our kids, take care of family members. We all want things to go back to normal quickly, but what most of us have probably not yet realized, yet will soon, is that things won't go back to normal after a few weeks or even a few months. Some things never will. And then it goes on to explain about flattening the curve and social distancing and these new normal rules that you're all going to have to follow, and that this will never ever go away, because as I observed, for example, in Medical Martial Law 2020, once these new ideas and new rules and new abrogations of what we used to think of as liberty are upended and taken back, clawed back, they will never be taken away from the authoritarians. The genie never goes back in the lamp. The toothpaste never goes back in the tube. Once it's out, it's out. And they are squeezing it out with all their might right now, and the public is going along with it. I also want you to reflect on the fact today just how creepy it is. Just detach yourself for a moment from the pandemic and everything that's going on. If I had said, say, at the start of this year, way back in the pre-coronavirus era, say, say in October of 2019, if I had said to you, the big propaganda buzzword and the that will have an entire movement associated with it, and all these actions and new cultural norms will come into place for 2020, I predict it's going to be social distancing. And how would you have interpreted that phrase in that previous mindset? It would have been absolutely creepy to think that in this age where obviously everyone is buried in their little slave device all the time, social distancing is in some extent the definition of the age that we find ourselves in, social distance. And now it's being physically manifested in reality, that you cannot actually have face-to-face interactions with other human beings. That's icky, and if you do that, we're going to shame you for it.
There's a coordinated effort by the World Health Organization and others to change the term, to social distance themselves from the term social distancing and to call it physical distancing instead, because they do not want to send the message that we are distancing ourselves from our social relationships, because we are hashtag alone together. And as Trevor Noah on the Daily Show said, and this is a theme I'm hearing everywhere, distant socially, but connect digitally. So the physical distancing is a playoff on that. We aren't really separated because we are all part of the Borg, and we're all assimilated into this digital network that's being pushed, and they want us to get used to that.
Just think about this, because I tell you, there is going to be a time after this pandemic crisis subsides, but these ideas that are being implanted in the public consciousness will continue on and will continue to be enforced, not necessarily at the point of a gun, but by all the people around you who are taking this propaganda at face value. So lots of different things to reflect on today, and I want to make them conscious, because again, think of how a story about a man yelling out his window becomes international news that someone in Japan picks up on. How? Why? It is because this is being done for a very specific purpose, to model specific behaviors for you. And even if you agree with everything that's being said, and even if you think that this is all for noble causes and everyone's doing it on the up and up and it's all just about trying to save lives, that's all this is about, even if that is the case, it should at least give you pause for thought just how easily and quickly entire, not just ideas, but social norms can be embedded in the public consciousness in this age of 24/7 online instantaneous communication and media. It's powerful to watch. It is fascinating, and I don't take delight in it, but it really is the most crystal clear instantiation of everything I've been talking about on Propaganda Watch for the past year and a half, and on the Corbett Report for the past 13 years. It is happening right now, and it is stunning to watch. So, that being said, I literally could do a Propaganda Watch episode every single day of the week here on out, and still not cover 1/10 of the propaganda that I'm seeing all the time. It's absolutely insane what's happening right now, but I will do my level best to do what I can, and maybe it won't be every single day. But I hope you'll be along for the ride with me, and please, in the show notes, in the comments, I don't know if people have been watching the CorbettReport.com comment section, but it truly is an amazing community. Literally people from all around the world. We're getting people checking in from Denmark, from India, from Spain, from Brazil, from France, all over the world, all sharing their own perspective and what's going on in their own backyards. And it's some incredible stuff. So I would very much be interested to hear from other people in different parts of the globe, especially people in non-English speaking countries, the way that social distancing is being introduced into your backyard. What does this look like or sound like to you in your own native tongue, and how are people reacting to it? How have you seen the crabs pulling the other crabs back into the bucket? I think it is important to, again, make this all explicit and on the record and see it for what it is, because if we just accept stories like this that get put into our heads, we think of it as normal. We normalize it. Anyway, that's going to do it for today. Again, I have so much to say about so many aspects of what's going on, but as always, the links to the things that I've been talking about will be in the show notes, and I hope you will take advantage of those and start consciously making this subject something that you're looking at as it's happening. That's going to do it for today. I'm looking forward to talking to you again in the very near future. James?